Hey class, welcome to week 10. Hope you're having a good class so far. I'm having a good week. All right, public relations writing. This is kind of what a lot of this comes down to. Seitel points out that writing is the fundamental foundation of public relations. I certainly agree with him. Writing is a huge part of this, whether you're writing for print, whether you're writing for speak. It all comes down to formulating our ideas, right, and taking what we're thinking and putting it forward in a well thought out, methodical way. Okay, so we'll be talking a little bit about that and the importance of it. I can't emphasize enough. It is the foundation, okay, for us communicating. And there's a difference, right? There's a difference between communicating for the eyes and communicating for the ears. Writing in something that someone is going to read, they have the ability to go back. They have the ability to reread something. They have the ability to stop and look ahead or go back. They have the ability to hop online and to fact check or to get more information on something that you say. They're able to do that. Listening is very different. When we're listening, often we hear it once. If it's recorded, they can go back, but if they're sitting at a speech or if they're listening to something on the radio or if they're listening to someone speaking, you don't have that luxury of going back. And so when we communicate to people, we need to think about that. Okay, when we're writing for it to be read, we're presenting that in a different way than when we're writing for it to be heard. It's different language choices. It's different structures. Seitel goes more into this, but make sure and take a look at that because it does make a difference. Okay, the words we choose, the feel. Okay, there's a difference between hearing something and reading something. Okay. However, how we present the fundamentals of writing do not change. Okay, a couple things to just be cognizant of. Think first, right? When we write, unlike in high school, and maybe when we were going to write a creative essay and we just dive in and start writing, with public relations, that's different. We don't do that, right? We think first. What is our message? What is our objective? What do we want to convey? And then we start the process of writing, okay? Drafting. Draft. Don't fear the draft. I know the author says that most public relations folks don't draft. I would, in my experience, that's not true. In all my years of doing public affairs and relations in government and in private sector, the drafting is a big deal. Things go through several drafts, and that's fine. Okay, that's how it's supposed to be. So do not fear the draft. Okay, use clarity. Again, conversation is different than writing, but it's either way, you want clarity, especially if you're writing for reporters. Okay, they have very limited space that they can use. Column inches for newspapers, space on websites. Okay, so they want things clear and concise. All right, and know your audience. That goes for all communication, right? Know your audience. Whether you're pitching a story or whether you are doing an op-ed, know your audience. Make it concise and directly to that audience. All right. Something about brevity. Brevity is very important, and brevity is hard. A lot of times you'll get an assignment or a paper, and it will say write a 5-page paper on blank, and then some students will write a 7-page paper, and sometimes they'll get docked, and they'll wonder why they get docked for going longer, almost as if that's a good thing, but it's not. Brevity is a skill. Sometimes it's easier to just wax on, right, until you find your point. It's difficult to find your point and focus on it up front. That's part of what brevity is. A famous line, John Adams, in writing a letter to Thomas Jefferson, said, "Mr. Jefferson, I apologize for the length of this letter. I would have been more concise, but I didn't have the time." That's a clever way of saying that it's difficult to be brief. Okay, brevity's key, so work on that. All right. The inverted pyramid. So the inverted pyramid is a structure that is used by journalists, reporters, in traditional writing. The advent of the internet and online news may challenge this a bit, but it's going to remain intact because it's a very effective way of writing in a concise way. Okay, the inverted pyramid basically gets to the point first. You get to the point, and then you provide the pertinent information, and then you expand down. So instead of starting out by leading in, often if you were to read a novel where they kind of pull you in, inverted pyramid's opposite. We get right to the point, right? And that's often known as the lead. Okay, so you always start with the lead. You'll hear reporters or people writing about or reading articles and say, well, what's the lead? The lead is out of the gate what we're talking about. Okay, the climax of the story goes first in the inverted pyramid. Facts are what matter. They come first. The lead addresses the who, the what, the where, the when, sometimes the why. All right. So often, and it's stuff for a reason, right? When people read the newspaper, first thing they do is look at a headline, which for those of you that are getting more into public relations research, there's some fascinating data out there and research on headlines and the persuasiveness of headlines. And it's not always a good thing because headlines can be very misleading. And often you read a headline and it has very little to do with the story. Okay, it goes back to what we've been talking about clicks and trying to grab readers' attention. Okay, but it starts with the headline, and then most readers might go 2 paragraphs into a story, and then a lot of them will just stop. Okay, that's why you want your information in the front. You want it in the lead. Okay, some people will argue the reason people stop after paragraph 2 is because of the lead, because they say, well, I got everything I need out of this, right? So I didn't have a reason to keep reading. So maybe if the inverted pyramid wasn't used, maybe people would go further. I don't know, but I'm not going to take that chance. Okay, so that's how the inverted pyramid works, and it's effective. It's been around for decades, and I don't see it going anywhere anytime soon. Okay, the press release, right? I know we read a little bit about that. Seitel talks about the press release as it being the gold standard. I agree. The press release is as a one-stop shop where you can get an organization or an individual's perspective, position, and background on an issue. All right, it's used to pitch, it's used to inform. It's everything in one. Okay, it's not a bunch of links. You don't have to go and find things. There it is, right there. Okay, a press release will go to a reporter. It provides the reporter the background on the issue. It provides the reporter quotes that he or she can use for the story. It's just a very consolidated, practical tool. A couple different things about the press release that makes it valuable. You need a reason to send it. Okay, so what are you looking to convey? All right, one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to load up a reporter's inbox every day with 3 or 4 press releases on just random things. Be thoughtful on what you're going to make news on. Okay, focus on one issue. Don't send on a press release that hits 3 or 4 different things. If you're working for a company and you're announcing a new release of a product line, and then you're also announcing the advancement of a new vice president, and you're also announcing the fact that one of your facilities in Birmingham, Alabama is being relocated to Orlando, Florida. Don't do that. Okay. One issue, centralized, relevant. Okay. Very structured. You can have meaningful quotes in there. Okay. The quotes are, again, your position on things. So you'll want to give quotes. They're often known as pull quotes. Okay. So a lot of times a reporter will not use that full release, but the reporter will grab a quote from there. So the quotes that you put in a press release, those are the ones, make them your best ones, okay? And they need to be relevant to the story. Don't make them puff quotes. Don't make them narcissistic because they won't use them, okay? Be modest, okay, in your quotes. And then make sure you have contact information there for you, okay? I know it seems very basic, but don't rely on a reporter emailing back from the email that came through. You need to give them content. All right. Other tools that you can use, op-eds. I'm a big fan of op-eds. I work for an elected official. So from the political side, op-eds are very useful because they convey your position on an issue. So they're very helpful. Corporate-wide, I think op-eds are more used by getting surrogates, third-party people to write about an issue. But either way, they're pretty helpful. The other nice thing with op-ed is once you have the op-ed, you can push it around everywhere. Okay, you can do a, in case you missed it, and you can send the op-ed to other reporters, other journalists, other venues, and they will then grab it. Op-eds have staying power in that they can be pushed around and posted and used in a lot of different ways. So big fan there. Quickly, Sitel talked a little bit about speeches. Just wanted to cover that. Something important about a speech, okay? Whether you're giving one, writing one, or listening to one, the outline of the speech, in my opinion, is as important as the delivery. You can have a very charismatic speaker that gets up there and is all over the place, okay? And then you walk away and say, it was entertaining, but I have no idea what she said, okay? So the outline of a speech is very important. It's very basic, obviously, introduction, thesis, body, conclusion. Your introduction should have a hook. But it is the relaying of information in a systemic way, in an intelligent way, in a way where someone's mind can follow what you're saying and that it makes sense. And then when the speech is done, they can turn around and say, this person spoke about this, and this was their point, and it was good. Okay? Put time in your outline. It's very, very important for your speech, right? And then editing. Editing is so important. Okay, proofreading. I even think I said it in our papers here. I said, proofread your paper, right? It's that last 5% before you turn it in. You work hard on something, and then you just fire it in without proofreading it, and it's like all for naught in a lot of ways, okay? And this goes for your public relations materials as well. It goes public. You have to edit these things. You have to proofread these things. One thing I put in my offices all the time is I require our staff to read everything out loud. When you proofread something, especially if you're the one who's been writing it, you proofread it by reading it out loud. Because what happens is when you read it out loud, you hear errors. If you just scan it and you just read it, your mind is going to fill in things. Okay, missing words, just things that don't sound right. Your mind's going to fill it in as you read it, especially if you are the writer. Okay, so we read out loud, and you'd be amazed how many things you catch when you read out loud. Let's apply this. So years ago, I was in an office, and we were involved in some national security stuff in dealing with Syria. And there were several news pegs that were going on that week regarding international relations. It was a very busy week on the Hill regarding all of that. And our comms people were working a lot, and it was late, and there was a lot going on. And so something occurred with Syria, and it was very, very important. So we banged a statement out really quick. And it went through the 3-read process, of out loud 3-read process. The third person out loud was the one that caught an error. What was happening was our readers, or our proofers, were reading the text of the press release, and they weren't reading the headline. Our third person read the headline and the text, and she noticed that the headline said Iraq and not Syria. Our comms person used a previous release template, and she was just busy, and then she typed in the headline. For some reason, she was thinking Iraq instead of Syria, and she left Iraq in there. Our third person caught it. We changed it, breathed a sigh of relief, but that would have been humiliating if that would have went out, commenting on something about Iraq, which didn't even make sense because that wasn't what was going on. It just would have been an error, and we would have had to issue a correction, and just would not have been worth it. So proofreading and editing is so important, and try it. Read it out loud. I think you'll find that it helps. Okay? All right, great. Looking forward to your assignments this week, and we'll talk soon.